And welcome everyone to the Cybercast brought to you by Cyberpunk 2077 Online News. I am your host, Harlequin, aka Peter. Now, before we get to our very, very special guest, just some quick housekeeping. We will be watching the chat in the No Voice Motel room. Certainly give your feedback there. We'll be watching, and later on, our wonderful guest will be taking a handful of questions from you. Of course, keep everything PG-13. Be kind to each other, everyone, folks. Because I have not fed the mods today, and they are grumpy, and I cannot take responsibility for what they will do. And lastly, next Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will have the incredible Emily Zoo Weller, aka Pan Am Palmer, here. So stick around for that next Sunday. But without further ado, now our guest needs, quite frankly, no introduction. But I am going to give her one of her that deserving of her stature. She is the defender of Venus and Sailor Moon, the warrior of Azarath as the Dark Ranger, the Pikachu plucker Chloe, Lucy in her own fairy tale, the vixen of Longmire Trixie, the sniper of Borderlands Gage, the zombie slaying Minova, and the gun-toting, ass-kicking Valerie in Cyberpunk 2077. She is amazing and oh so talented, Cherami Leigh. Cherami, thank you so much.
Hello, thank you so much. What a fun intro. Now, you made me sound way cooler than I can ever live up to. So
I'll be here all week, folks. Tip your waitress. Thank you. And if you want to hire me to do all your intros, I mean,
no kidding. That's way cool. I never knew that I could even do that. Like have someone create my intro for me. That's way cool.
That's a thing. You could have someone just record
awesome.
it, and then every time you do an interview, that's really? DJs have intro music. That'll be your intro.
Yeah,
just boom,
absolutely.
play this MP3 right before my interview.
For the brief time that I was on the air, that should have been my intro. But it was a children's radio station, so I don't know if it would have gone over as well. Yeah, that would be way cool for an intro on a radio station.
Yeah. Well, for those, I'm going to say 5 people listening that do not know who my wonderful guest is. Let me just give you a very, very quick background. Cherami started her acting at the age of 6. She studied the Meisner-based film acting technique at the age of 9. She grew up in Texas and studied theater at Collin College. She worked for Radio Disney as a DJ. She did voiceover promotions and commercials for ABC Radio for 10 years. In 2013, she moved to LA to continue her voice acting, and her career just snowballed out of control from there. Is that basically sum up your beginnings?
Yeah, I guess I remember a lot more of the I guess the pitfalls and the heartaches that happened along the way, but I am always when I look back on things, I'm like, man, there were some incredible things that happen and continue to happen. And I'm so thankful that those hard times and those heartaches and those really what if and should I keep doing this moments, when you look back on things as a whole, you go, wow, that's it. I've been incredibly fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was putting this all together, and again, being the all professional interviewer that I am, and I saw here, began acting at the age of 6. I'm thinking, okay, at the age of 6, I was trying not to land on my fucking face riding a bike, and this woman was like, her career was just, she was just getting her career. So let's start at the beginning. I'm very fascinated by this. What person or event at that age that you can recall kind of got you interested on this path?
Well, my mom says that I was always harassing her about wanting to act and be an actor. And I would be doing commercials in the bathtub as if they were laundry commercials. And my mom thought, well, this is terrible. As my mom was an actor for a very brief time. and she hated it because she said it's just an emotionally gutting industry, especially for a child, and so she did not want her child to go through it.
Right.
But I was relentless. She's also a dance teacher, and she had a student that played a character on Barney. And so at a young age, 3 or 4, I remembered seeing that Pia was in my mom's dance class, but Pia also got to be on Barney. So that was something that I could do. And that's all I knew that acting was, is you could be on Barney and play pretend for a job. Um, so I guess it was Barney that was my
Oh
inspiration
my
of,
God.
this is what I could do. And so I told my mom, I really want to be on Barney. And she said, no, you don't. This business is very hard. So she put me in a bunch of acting classes for kids that were much older than I was, because I think I was 4, almost 5 at the time. And they were saying, we don't take anybody in class that's before they're 6, because they have to be able to read the scripts. And I told my mom, you can read and I'll memorize it and I'll be ready to go and I'll practice my reading. So I think I memorized one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, to pretend that I knew how to read. And that got me to be able to take an acting class.
Wow. Now I recall, and for the just very briefly, but I think this is hilarious. Your mother, I heard you tell this story before, and I love your mother because of this. She decided she had a master plan to
Uh huh.
sabotage because she just thought this was a bad idea, and she
Yeah.
had a master plan to change your mind, and it didn't quite work out the way she thought, did it?
No, it actually worked out the opposite of what she had hoped. I'm very fortunate to have family that's always had my back and supported my well being. But my mom's supporting of my well being in this case was like, I have to crush this dream of her being an actor. Which is understandable. It is not a
No,
fun industry for kids. It
no,
can have a lot of joy if that is what the child loves to do,
right.
but it's hard. So my mom found an open call for Miracle on 34th Street, the remake that was done, I believe, in
Right.
'94. Um, and they were meeting kids, and you had to memorize this little paragraph that was in the paper. For many people, we used to receive a paper, and you would have, news and articles and ads. It was much like the internet, but you could hold it in your hands. And so we went to this I think it was at like a hotel in Dallas, and they had ballrooms rented, and kids were just coming in and doing
Mhm.
this quick audition, and they would say yes or no, and if they said yes, you got to go to the next ballroom on the next floor. And so I remember my first audition in the first ballroom. I left and my mom was like, okay, cool, let's go. And she brought my brother with his little trucks. And she thought it was going to be an in and out situation. It would kill the dream and we could move on. And I said, no, they told me they want me to go to another room. And my mom was like, no, they didn't. And so she goes and finds the assistant, and they said, no, 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 the next casting director needs to meet her. And mom was like, no, no, no. And it went all day. It was like a 12-hour thing. And my mom thought, okay, well, this is fine. We'll do the 12-hour thing. She's going to say, this is miserable. And I'll say, this is what you're getting yourself into. And throughout the entire day, she was like, this is pretty rough, isn't it? I was like, this is the greatest day ever. And my mom was like, oh no. It made me more of a monster, because now I had a taste of auditions, and now they would give us more copy and more lines, and we get to create a character, and they'd give us direction. And it absolutely backfired on her.
Now you've done both. Unlike some actors, you've done both film and voice work, obviously.
Yes.
What, looking in hindsight, the totality amount of your career, what do you, for those people who, you know, might be interested in getting into this career, what do you say are the pros of film and the cons, and the same for voice work?
Oh, the pros and cons of film work. Um, Well, I mean, some of the things that I love about film that I don't necessarily get to experience in voiceover, you get to be on the set and get to work with a team, incredibly talented artisans and professionals that are able to create this beautiful set, create these beautiful costumes, really immerse you in the world. But oftentimes, for voiceover, obviously, they're not going to build a set in the soundstage for you. So it's a lot of utilizing your imagination, much like you would for the first couple of rehearsals for a stage play before the set's built. Um, it's also lovely to be able to act with other actors in the moment and get to play off of them when they have a really cool creative idea that maybe wasn't something scripted or wasn't something that you could intuit from the text. And it's just something that they creatively came up with. It's nice to be able to have those moments on film to run with. And in voiceover, oftentimes we're recording alone just because everybody's schedules are so difficult to manage around. And I think that's why we're able to get more voiceover work done than for a film set. I mean, for voiceover, I can work on a bunch of different projects at one time. While I was working on Cyberpunk, for example, I was working on anime, I was working on other video games, I was working on different web series, working on different projects like that. Whereas if I'm a series regular on a TV show or a film, I am kind of locked into that project because that's all I can do um, from sun up to sundown because we have all of the other actors scheduled for that same block of time. So there's a little bit more freedom, but also you miss out on that magic of what another actor may bring to the character. So you really, really rely on the director to help guide. Like, this is what this actor does. This is kind of what their performance is going to sound like based on what I've seen. An example being, I had never met Emily, who plays Pan Am in Cyberpunk, who does incredible work. She's amazing. But the director, Pierce O'Toole, was obviously working with her. So he kind of knew how Emily would respond to a scene. So if I was the one coming in first, he could give me reads that would match what Emily was doing, which was incredibly helpful. Because when you're on set, obviously you have the actor that you can play off of. You don't need someone who will guess and kind of check what they're going to do. I love both. People have asked me, so would you just do voiceover all the time? And I said, when I'm doing a lot of voiceover, not a lot of on camera, I miss on camera. When I'm doing a lot of on camera, I every day I'm like, can somebody just throw me in the booth and let me do a little bit of voiceover somewhere somehow? I think they both stretch different muscles. For voiceover, I've gotten to play characters. A perfect example would be V, that I would never get cast as on camera. And usually the characters that I would get cast on camera, I never get cast for in voiceover. So I kind of get to play different sides of, I guess, my personality in the different venues of acting, which is great.
And this perfectly segues into my next question. And
Okay, cool.
you are like, I mean, as I said, in the past I've interviewed authors and certain notable people in their subcultures and game developers and such. You are my favorite person so far, I gotta say.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
No, you are. You are.
Aw,
And
thank
I
you.
just want to say, folks, before we were recording, we were chatting for about 5-10 minutes. And let me just say, the person you see in all the YouTube videos, that is her to a T. She is that nice. She is that sweet. She is that friendly.
Well, thank you. That's
You're very
very
welcome.
kind.
Before I get to my question, for those handful of people who've been following me, who have seen me do other interviews about these other people I mentioned, we always do talk about what the beverage of the interview is. And today, Harl is drinking some Chaucer's mead. Unfortunately, our wonderful guest has work to do after this interview, so cannot partake in adult beverage. But I am drinking for both
My
of us.
spirit, my
In
spirit is
spirit,
drinking the
I
Chaucer's mead.
Yes. Yes. So cheers to you, my new
Cheers.
friend.
Yes, indeed. Cheers to you.
All right. Now, as I said, this segues perfectly because um, we'll talk a little bit more cyberpunk specific, but voice acting just in the big picture is it, your training in the Mesner system must really help when you don't have any. I am not a voice actor, so correct me if my assumptions are
Sure.
wrong, but I'm assuming that more times than not you don't have the other actors to play off of. I don't mean physically there. I mean even their recordings that they're just like,
Yes.
here's a script, and this is the situation, and the director's like, go, and you got to just formulate all this in your head. Am I assuming all this correctly?
Yeah.
She's like, yep.
Yep.
And
It's really nice when we do have the other voice to work off of,
mhm,
but oftentimes that's not possible either. I mean, for example, with Cyberpunk, Keanu is a very busy man,
mhm,
and we didn't always have Keanu to play opposite of, which meant we were not only recording as things were being written, which meant we were going out of order. We were recording, there were certain scenes where we needed Keanu's voice and we needed Gavin, who voices Male V. We
mhm.
needed both of their voices for timing purposes and for context purposes. So sometimes we would just have to skip those beats, and the director would have to Pierce would have to fill in the gaps for me of what we didn't know yet. We had what I call the cyberpunk Bible that the creative team would send over as they were fleshing out the characters, what they roughly had in mind for the pieces and the scenes and the different missions. But it's a lot of figuring it out as you go and staying flexible and yeah, very much like the Meisner technique of staying in the moment and just listening and reacting off of what you're given in that moment. You don't have time to pre-plan, you don't have time to make a lot of prejudgments. It's just judging off of your first immediate reaction of what happens right then and there.
Is that true for most of your anime work as well?
With anime, it's a little different because obviously we have the animation already pre set for us and we have to dub according to plan. A very talented uh, script adapter has sat with translations and agonized over how to best fit the flaps with maintaining a characterization that fits the character, making it different from the other characters, making it true to the translation while also balancing the direction that they have agreed upon with the Japanese creative team. And that is a very, very exhausting and interesting and fascinating process that I, as the actor, don't have to worry about because all of that work is already done when the script
Right.
comes to me. I just have to worry about making the voice and the words and the performance fit the animation and fit the flaps. So there's a lot less room for freedom and improv and kind of taking things as they go. But at the same time, you do have to be fluid and flexible. Going, man, I am going to have to fit this performance and this reaction and this emotional context into this line. And there's too many words and they have to be said, or there's not enough words and we can't add anything without making it sound like we just made up adding a bunch of filler words. So you'll have to adapt your performance as you go, which means maybe saying things differently than you naturally would. So I remember there was um, an exercise that I did. I don't know if it was Meisner or Chekhov in college, what the situation was, but if you look at one line, how many different emotions or how many different ways or different speeds can you say this line and then change the emotional intention of it and then see what happens from there. So, not being married to the performance, not being married to the read of the line, and letting all of those I guess those factors that could cause a little bit of disarray, being excited by that chaos and letting it inspire creativity. So, depending on if you're doing video games or you're doing film or you're doing um, anime, the chaos agent is different based on the different the different styles of acting, but that spark of chaos that keeps you on your toes, that keeps you engaged, that keeps you present is always there.
Interesting. Um, Now you've done again looking at your War and Peace sized IMDb. 75, I'd say roughly 75, 80% is probably English dubbing anime. Is that probably fairly
Mhm.
accurate? More or
Sure.
less? 75, 80% is, I mean, just looking through it, I mean, I didn't get exact numbers, but
Yeah.
just in case people think I'm exaggerating, your IMDb is over 350 entries. You've over 350 roles
That's
are listed.
crazy.
Uh, yes,
That's
yes.
crazy.
That's why I was already pre-apologizing before you got here to the people here because I was like, listen, there's no way we can cover everything. There's just no way. There's we would be here for the next 9 hours. So and this poor woman cannot afford that. So there's some things we just gotta gloss. So well, a lot we gotta just gloss over. Um,
Sure.
but speaking of the anime, now I mean I like anime. I appreciate it. I'm definitely not a fan. It's
Sure.
just something that I mean I've watched when I was growing up. I watched some like Star Blazers, which is was originally what Battleship Yamato, I believe, was the original Japanese anime name for it.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah, Voltron, the typical
Yeah.
80s, 90s cartoons I used to watch, and so I definitely appreciate it. I definitely watched it, but uh, I wouldn't definitely wouldn't say I don't want to diminish real fans and say I'm a fan because that I feel that'd be a little insulting to real anime fans. Um, but with that said, I just find anime very, very fascinating. The art style, and I've watched some clips of you, and I'm just imagining like, how is this woman like it? It's just craziness. Some of the voice acting you do, like the screaming and when their eyes turn into hearts and just all this. And it's just, I mean, I find it highly entertaining, but
Yeah.
I can just imagine that the mindset you need to do anime must be very, very different from like say doing an English PC, English based PC character, PC game character or
Sure.
or uh, you know uh, American based cartoon. Could you talk about the differences that you've encountered going from the English based cartoon versus the Japanese dubbing?
Sure. Well, I started working in film and TV, and then I had done a little bit of voiceover commercials, some small original animation, a lot of promo work for Radio Disney. And so when I was 17 and I just graduated from high school, my agent said, I have an audition for you. It's voiceover for this company called Funimation. They're casting the show called Peach Girl. So I went in, had no idea what Funimation was, what they had done. I think I had heard a little bit about that Funimation is this company that works on the show called Dragon Ball Z, which I knew
Yes.
was anime. My understanding of anime to that point was anime was Sailor Moon, Pokemon, and
Yes.
DBZ. That's what I thought anime was. And what's been so fascinating over my career working in anime, because my background was in film, was how so much of the time they wanted a pretty realistic performance. And then you'll find some anime, much like DBZ, that are very stylized, where they want the big power up yells and the magical girl chants and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. You kind of learn the stylized world, but then I've worked on some shows. One that comes to mind is I think it's a 12 episode series called Erased, where it's kind of like a thriller mystery where they wanted all of the performances really, really grounded. So it's interesting that as I've found all of the different genres, Steins Gate's another one where they wanted really grounded performances. Um, I was like, well, I'm not working on this. The show called Peach Girl that I'm working on is not anime because it's not, Sailor Moon, DBZ, or Pokemon. And they were like, no, this is all anime. And I remember after I worked on Peach Girl, I worked on another show, and I told one of the producers, you guys got to slow down. You are dubbing anime so fast, you're going to run out of anime. And they laughed at me and said, sweetheart, we're not going to run out of anime. And they're right. They haven't run out of anime. So it's been a really interesting journey. Um, of course, yeah, we get the fun moments. I remember one of my first sessions, the character was what it translated to in Japanese. She was saying sneak she was like sneak, sneak, sneak as she was sneaking across the screen. And it sounded like a squeak. And I was like, are we gonna do a squeak? How are we gonna? And they said, no, we're saying sneak. That's the way that this translates, which was a very quirky thing. So kind of taking the quirky, goofy, super comedic, out of context elements and the realistic performances, and then some super comical, super over the top, uh, very, very animated performances. It's been interesting to see how different shows navigate that balance. But of course, when you work on a game like Cyberpunk, it's very much like working on a film. We're not doing anything over the top. There were moments with V that I would tell the director, I'm like, do I need to shake something up a little bit? I feel like I'm maybe making people fall asleep. And he's like, no, we're going through this journey with you. So as long as you're staying in the moment. And I said, yeah, I just feel like I'm being really honest and really like very normal. And for any performance on film or otherwise, you don't get to spend that much time with a character. And for a film, you will find a character. Some moments will be very mundane and very slice of life, life as it comes. But a lot of times, a film is a depiction of a couple of days, a couple of months, a year, a couple of years at the most heightened, either dramatically or comedically, part of someone's life. And of course, there are definitely elements of that in Cyberpunk, but then there are also moments of it's just like V hanging out on the street, getting to know people, and it's very mundane, very, uh, you know, just a daily moment in their life. And so knowing that I had the permission to just be as honest and as raw and as simple as that would be in real life was really fun, and it was a great way to balance that with some of the bigger, more explosive moments of the game.
I want to definitely come back to that. There's just one more general question, then
Sure.
we're going to dive into the 2077 stuff, which I'm sure everyone's biting at chomp for. But again, generally speaking, in both anime and general PC gaming, voiceover work and such, how much input do the voice actors have to the character? Is it a faux pas to say, "Hey, I really think, I mean, I've been doing this, I've been doing this character for weeks now, and I really think he or she, they may, I feel like they would say this differently." Or do you have any level of input, or is it just here's a script and you just say exactly what's on this page?
Well, the general rule when we're auditioning for something, I will have casting directors, and other actors say, if you want to do a pass where you're going to improvise or do something off script or do something fun that you were inspired to do, your first pass and your first read is always what's on the page. And this is true, I think, on camera as well, just because a writer created this world and you don't want them to feel like you are not respecting what they've created, because you think you could do it better. So you always want to do it exactly as written. And then I think I had a director tell me once, like, hey, if you ever want to change something up, a very easy way to say it without you know getting getting your wrist slap too much, is just say, "Hey, I love this and it inspired something in me. Do you mind if I try it?" And you'll find pretty early on how receptive a team will be to that. Um, for Cyberpunk specifically, they were very receptive to that. There were a couple of moments just because they would be creating the slang, or they were very very conscious about pronoun usage. And then Gavin, who voices Mel V, was recording the same line, so we had to make sure that if he had already recorded, I had to match exactly the words that he had, not the reads he had. But I've had when I worked on Fast Food Nation, there was a conversation with Richard Linkletter where he said, "I hate this script. This is not how a 17-year-old would talk. How would you say these words?" And I, at 17, was really nervous of like, I don't want to offend anybody. But he's like, "No, no, no, please. How would you say this?" And Ashley Johnson was my scene partner, and she started off, she's like, "Well, I would say this," and then that got me feeling more confident in that. So you're always towing a line of, somebody's worked really hard on this script and these missions, and do these words need to be the exact same words that we're going to use because they're referenced later, or do I have a little bit of room to play? And it's getting to know the team, getting to know their process, and then finding out how you fit into that process. So it varies project by project. I know with Gearbox and with Borderlands, Anthony Birch, when I first played Gage, said, "This script is a skeleton. Please put the meat on the bones. You have free reign." So it varies.
All right. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 specific. How much freedom did they allow you for Valerie?
Certainly with my performances, which I enjoyed, I think that I made my V is a little bit more sarcastic and has a little bit more dark humor than they had initially thought, or maybe that was what they had in mind the whole time. But they never once asked me to rein it in or be more serious. There were a couple of times that my first take is what got used, because that was just my first impulse and they didn't even want to redirect. So there's a lot of that. I think we did a couple ad libs. Certainly Pierce and I would say, we don't know if this makes sense, or feels really weird when I say it. And they would say, "Great, cool, change it," or they would say, "No, this is a really important slang and it means this," and then they would explain it, and I would go, "Oh, okay, now I understand, and now I know how uh, to rationalize that and make that make sense in my brain." But they were very very open and receptive to my interpretation of the character, and they would finesse as they needed. But ultimately, they said, "We hired you for the personality and the emotive heart that you bring to this, and we don't want to stifle that at all," which was really really nice.
The thing, I made this comment a few weeks back, and I'd like to share it with you. And this is my personal interpretation. Here I am. I'm interpreting your interpretation, so this might go
Okay,
very,
cool.
very badly for me. But but this is how I interpreted your interpretation of Valerie versus Gavin's interpretation of Vincent.
Okay.
I Gavin's interpretation to me was a V who was, it might be a little extreme to say, but all on borderline emotionally broken. He every what transpired when the heist went sideways, all his
Sure.
teammates died, and now he has a ticking time bomb in his head. The vibe I got from his performance was a man. I mean, he certainly wanted to, obviously save himself. Obviously,
Sure.
it wasn't like,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, I'm going to throw myself off a bridge," but but he was just emotionally beaten down, and
Mhm.
he was just a very matter of factly, "I got to get through this." And that's why some people have said, well, his performance isn't as emotional as Valerie's, and I think that is exactly what should be. I like the fact that you guys took two different approaches to your respective V's, where you're, again, and you slap me upside my head and tell me if I'm totally misinterpreting your interpretation, but Valerie's what I got was a woman who was pissed off. She's just like, fuck you, and especially fuck you. I am going to get to the end of this. I am going to see this through. I am not going to go down, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory, but I am not going to lose this fight. And it was this grim determination emulation that I felt from your performance. Now, tell me if I'm totally wrong on my how I felt about that, but that was my takeaway.
One of my favorite things about the character from the moment that I auditioned, and my audition scene was a scene with Victor Vector, and I loved how honest the world was. I loved how vulnerable she was throughout the journey. I mean, she's guarded to certain people, but she's certainly very vulnerable, and we get to see there is a heart there, and it has been bruised and it has been beaten down, but she doesn't give up. Which I really loved. And in the scene with Victor Vector, the audition scene, there was a line where she says something to the effect of, I just need somebody to give me a shot. I know I'm meant to do this, and I'm perfectly capable, and I'm ready, and I just need somebody to believe in me. And I think in a lot of ways, first of all, any actor can relate to that. I think any person can relate to that. One of the things that Gavin and I were talking about when the game came out, we had an interview, and we both said V is an underdog, and we had not spoken to each other. We had not met each other. We did not know what each other's process was. But the idea that someone would go to Night City, a city to make their dreams come true, to cement their place in the world, and it's full of opportunity, but also a lot of opportunities to get, like you said, shut down, shot down, end it all. And I think there needs to be some determination uh, to keep you cutting through with the machete with all of the stuff that comes in your your path. Um, but obviously, no matter what backstory you choose, there's going to be an element of pain, of anger, of hurt. But what keeps us going in life? What is that hope? What is that dream that keeps us wanting to push forward? And for me, it was I had always dreamed of working on a project like this, getting to spend this much time with a character, getting to do a player character with this many lines, with this much of an incredible backstory. And so every day I went to work, there's probably a piece of me that was always going to be heard, and I could not get rid of I'm living my dreams, and I'm so lucky to get to do this. And I don't want to let anybody down, and I don't want to let the character down, and I don't want to let these fans down. So maybe that hope is what you were like hearing in between all of the pain and the anger and the frustration. It's just the piece of me that I could not push aside all the way.
No, that's fair. That's and I appreciate that. And let me just say, I've seen. I don't know how much internet feedback you read. That can be that could be that could be a can of worms in of itself. That's a whole nother podcast, I'm sure. But as a whole, I've seen incredible amount of positive feedback for your performance.
Oh, that's so nice.
That they everyone yes no every the vast majority of people love how the emotions you bring to Valerie, and I do too.
Awesome.
And again, and I think again, you said you and Gavin really didn't trade notes or really talk beforehand, but I love the fact you guys gave two very different performances, and I got two very different impressions of V's mindset and personality and where he's
And
at.
I think as it should be. I mean, different people are going to respond to situations differently, and they deserve a player character as their voice in this world, that responds the closest to how they would naturally respond. So I'm very thankful to the creative team for not saying, "Hey, play this version of what Gavin did." And give us a direct a direct copy paste with your voice, and then telling Gavin for certain pieces that I would lead on, do exactly what she did, but with your voice. They never did that, which was really, really nice to get to have that individuality for our interpretations.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'll be the first to say, if you guys just did a mirror of each other, that would have just been boring,
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
frankly. And it would,
yeah.
and I would have to imagine, and I mean, I'm not expecting you to name names, but I'm sure you've been in situations where you've been told to do that, and that as an actor, I can only imagine how boring that must be. That you
It
just you're
for
basically
me,
just parroting someone else.
yeah, for me, it's actually difficult because when someone will say, "Here's an existing audio file," or "Here's an existing character, and this is kind of what we like. Could you do this?" There's a lot of pressure, and it feels really difficult. And I get really insecure of like, how close can I be to that person? Voice matches are really hard for me because if you're doing a celebrity voice match for, I don't know, whoever the actor may be, you go, well, I'm not this person. I can't interpret how they would respond to this. We're totally different people. I don't know why they would inflect the line here or there. So for me, it's a lot of pressure, and I feel really in my head and really insecure, because my natural instinct is, cool, this is what you like, and now I will add a little bit of myself and my experiences and how I interpret scenes, and you'll get sort of a an amalgamation of the two. But if they want a direct voice match, that's actually it makes me really insecure, because I don't want them to be disappointed, and I know that I cannot deliver a performance as well as they could deliver a performance, because they're just following their instincts, and I'm trying to figure out what their instincts are so I can follow them.
That that's fair. Um, one one other thing, when I saw that I've seen you in previous other interviews talk about the demo reel that was done about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and that you when you did it, you said, I wasn't even sure if they were going to bring me on as Valerie. I all I knew is at that time they just had hired me for the demo reel, and that was that.
Yeah.
How for the demo reel? How were you approached? When did you hear about the project? What were you told about Valerie at that point?
I went in, I just got a call to go into the studio for a quick uh, audition. Um, Usually, most of our auditions we send in from home. Certainly, uh, because of obvious circumstances, that is the case. But for
Right.
this one was a rare opportunity. We got to go in studio,
Hmm.
which is always fun because that means we have the opportunity to be redirected and we can shift our performance. So I was really excited, and that was my first inclination that maybe this was a bigger uh, kind of a project where they I was going to be spending a lot of time with a character that they wanted to see, can she take a redirection, what is the vibe. And so that from that first audition, I thought maybe this is going to be a project I'll get to work on for the long haul if I got cast. And then I did the audition, and I fell in love with the character and was kind of obsessed with the world, and I wanted to figure out what I auditioned for. And so I came home and I was trying to research, and the thing that I kept coming back to um, was the trailer from 2014, I think, that teaser trailer that they did, and I thought, "There's no way that I auditioned for Cyberpunk 2077. There's just no way." And so, didn't hear anything for a couple weeks, and then my agent called and said, "So you're going in for Cheetah? They want to book you for a session." And I thought, "Oh, that was quick." Walked in, they kind of showed me roughly what the world looked like, and their idea of a rough animatic was I thought, a very detailed animatic, which was super helpful. We did that first quick demo, and it it did what it was supposed to do for the player, at least in my eyes, because I was like, I want more. When do we get to find out more? Um, I don't know if at that time they had told me this was a demo for Cyberpunk 2077, and I didn't want to ask because my fear was if I walked in and said, is this for Cyberpunk 2077? And they say, no, why would we be working on that? Um, so I didn't want to say anything. Like a year went by, didn't hear anything,
Wow,
and
a
I thought,
year.
yeah, and I thought,
Wow.
well, okay, that was
Yeah.
fun. At least I
Yeah.
got to do the demo.
Right.
And there were a couple of other actors that worked in the demo that I was friends with, and we would talk about it, saying, "Man, wouldn't it be great if?" And then as time went by, we're like, "Yeah, we knew they were going to find a celebrity to do it." Um, and then
I love the
after I
fact.
think,
Just to interject very quickly. I love the fact you don't consider yourself a celebrity. I love
oh,
that
not at
fact.
all. No, 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 no. We were like, they're gonna get an A-lister to come in and do the characters, and we just got to do the setting for the raw demo. So it was like exactly a year because it was for the same convention where they were gonna do the second demo. I did the second demo, and I thought, wait, well, this is cool. I guess I get to do a bonus demo. And then Boris, who with CD Project Red, said, "Cool, so we'll see you in a couple weeks for the actual game." And
Wow.
I panicked, and because I thought, like, he can't be serious. But the whole time that we worked on the game, it wasn't probably until like a year into recording that Pierce, the director, would say, like, "So how are you feeling?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just waiting for the call where they say, 'Thank you for your service. We now have so and so A-lister coming in to take over from here.'" And after a year, I said, "So I think it's me and Gavin. Like, we're the choices." And the director was like, "Welcome, welcome to where we've all been living for months. Why did it take you this long?" But I think, just like Gavin had said, because he had the same experience. He was like, "I was always waiting for the call to get fired," and we said, maybe that is like the deep down fear within V of, like, this can all go away at any moment in time, and we've just got to, like, live in the moment, live in the present, because this could all blow up in our face very quickly and at a moment's notice.
And my last question before we take some questions, because I know
Sure.
I don't want to. I know you got a lot of things to do here. So let me one more question, and then we'll take a few fan questions if you don't mind.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
and of course, now I just blanked out. It's the mead. It's the fucking
It's
mead.
the need.
It's the
Yes, yes.
mead.
And you're doing a service to me by drinking my share of mead as well. So really, thank you.
I like the way you think, Miss Lee. I like the way you
Thank you
think.
so much.
Um, where was I going? Because you said something that really um, clicked. Oh, yes. Um, how when you were doing your lines? Now I know you told a story before that you some of Keanu had some of his lines, so you did have some feedback to play off of
Yes.
at times. But what about the other voice actors? Were you one of the were you one of the first people to first actor to do their lines, so you didn't have much beyond Keanu much to play off with, or did other people have some of their lines, so you had some of the other actors to play off of?
It was definitely a give and take, because V has so many lines in
Well,
this game.
yes, it's true.
There would be moments where I would be working on a mission or a path, and the other actor would not be cast yet. Or they would say, "We think it's going to be this kind of a voice," and then they would end up going through creative changes, and a character that had been written as a male was now a female character, and so we were going
Oh,
through adjustments like that as we went along. But because V has so many lines. There were times where I was kind of blazing the trail with audio, and then there were other times where they would come in and catch up to me, or if we were skipping over things, we would go back, and suddenly there would be a voice there. So I think, a perfect example was Mateo, the bartender from the scene where I meet Evelyn. And when we
Oh,
first
yes.
started working on that scene, it's so early in the game. Evelyn had been brought in. Kari was voicing just an incredible job in everything she's in, but she was
Oh,
so good as Evelyn.
she
Um,
amazing job by
she's
her.
so good. So she was already in, so I had her wonderful performance to play off of, which was amazing. And then I didn't know who Mateo was, and I don't know why, but everybody would make jokes. I, as Cherami, just really loved scenes with Mateo. I really loved Mateo as a character. I don't know why. He did not want to talk to V at all, and I
No.
found that very interesting and very endearing. And I wanted to talk to him even more because of that. So I think it was one of our last sessions, like in oh my gosh, maybe May or June of 2020, of this last year. They said, so we've got some additional dialogue with Mateo. And I said, guys, you've got to give me a moment. I am freaking out. Do we have a Mateo voice? And they said, yes. And we have a Mateo voice for you. So he was one of my first scenes, and then ended up becoming one of my last scenes. And in the first scene, I didn't know who he was, didn't have a voice for him. And at the end, I finally got to play off of the voice of Mateo, and it was very interesting. So it varies throughout the process, but I would say throughout the process, I probably got to hear a little bit of everybody, at
Okay.
least for a line or two,
Right.
to play off of, which was
So
great.
you get kind of in your head, you kind of get the idea. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm
Okay.
going to put you on the spot. Are you ready?
I'm terrified, but I'm ready.
You
Okay.
should be, because
Okay.
this
Oh
might break the internet
no.
depending on what you
Oh
say.
no.
Yes. Team Judy or Team Pan Am?
Oh, you cannot do that
Yes,
to
I did
me.
it. I
I
asked the
can.
question.
Oh man. Well, look, I will do the horrible Miss America answer and say, well,
Oh
it depends on which life
no.
path you choose.
Oh well, that's a fair.
It would
I
change everything based on what your
that's
past and what your life path was.
as
Um,
as begrudgingly as I have to admit, that is actually a good answer. That's actually a fair
However,
answer. A fair answer.
and I've told Emily this. I have not gotten to talk to Carla yet, but I'm like, once we are able to be in person and interact with each other, I need to be on a panel with those two women. Like,
Oh
I
my
need
god.
to be able to hear about their experiences. Because I have not met either of them in person.
Really?
No, I haven't met.
I
I have
always
not
think
met
all you
very
voice
few people
actors
in
are
the
in
game.
this big. You know why? Because Critical Role. You have all those voice
Yeah,
actors play
yes,
D&D every
yes,
week, and so
yes.
everyone thinks voice actors are they're in this big cabal, this big, group that they're all talking, they're all friends, and they all hang out with each other. And I
Well,
think
we all interact on social media, at times, but really the only time that the real times that we get to interact with each other, and we were not able to do that at all last year,
right,
was at conventions. When we get invited to conventions together, and some conventions will say, "Hey, we want to do a Borderlands themed event for this year," and they'll bring out a bunch of the Borderlands cast.
right,
That is the only way that I get to meet these
really,
people and interact with them.
huh,
So we love getting to go to conventions to interact with the fans and get to
right,
hear what everybody's experiences are. And at the same time, we love to get to go to conventions to meet each other, because otherwise we don't get to see each other. When we worked on Last of Us, The Last of Us 2, because it was such a vocally stressful game, for
hmm
each of our sessions, they said, we want to make sure that you guys are getting mandatory vocal rest. So we have booked two actors at the same time. And while one is doing their screams, their yells, their deaths. The other person will be drinking water, resting, and then we'll alternate. So
Oh,
they
that's
were
a thing?
maximizing the
Mandatory
times.
voice rest?
Yeah. Um,
Wow. Okay.
because we were just screaming and gargling and doing all these like
Okay.
really painful, awesome guttural reactions.
Right.
But Kari was my partner. She was the one that I got to share the sessions with. So while we were working on The Last of Us 2, we also started working on Cyberpunk at the same time. And we couldn't say anything with an NDA, but we knew
Right.
we'd both signed the NDA. So at one
Right.
point I said, by the way, your performance in a different thing I'm working on is just stellar. And she said, wait, what else are we working on together? And I sort of alluded to the project and she was like, that's you? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So that was really, really fun.
That's awesome. All right. I got a handful of questions here.
Cool.
Let's see. Hermione wants to know. I was going to ask about how did Cherami do the voice acting for Persona 5 Strikers during the pandemic? What was the best part about working with Altus?
Oh, Atlas, yeah.
Yes.
So Atlas and PCB have PCB is the studio that we record at with Keith and Val Aram, and different studios have had different preferences for recording during the pandemic. Some studios will say, we want to send out equipment for you to streamline the process and make it as easy as possible on our mix engineers who are trying to make everything sound like it was recorded in the same space. And some will say, we just want to use your setup from home, or we'll send you a mic, or we'll substitute things. But with PCB, they got these rigs made up with everybody gets the exact same noise, like foam sound filter. We get the same mic. We get a laptop and a preamp and all these things sent to us in these rigs, and we will use them for the session. And then someone from PCB will come pick it up. They sterilize everything. They put it under the UV light. And then that was how we were able to record Persona during COVID. I actually had my first session for Strikers the day before we went into lockdown in March. And then they got all the rigs together, and we were able to still keep recording that way. So that studio in particular has a very unique setup, but that's how we were able to keep recording.
Mercy wants to know, have you played the game as Valerie?
I have. Yeah. So it took me a very long time to jump into the game because I've been enjoying watching other people's streams of the game. Um, I because I've spent so long working on this and I know all of the characters and I've met everybody, it's so fun getting to see everyone else experience it because I feel like now all of these people are in on all of the inside jokes and I'm like, don't you love that? This is so great. And it was so hard for me to decide which life path did I want to choose for my first path. What did I want V to look like, because there are so many incredible options. How was I going to choose all of the right uh, choices and dialogue options? And it was very intimidating because I love working on this game. But yeah, I watched my brother go through it. I watched a friend of mine from high school and a couple of other streamers and things like that. And I finally jumped in and made my V and started playing. And I told the director, I was like, I've already made mistakes. I got so stressed by what some of the other people were saying. I picked the wrong dialogue option. That was not the one that I wanted to do. I came off very mean and aggressive, and I wanted to take the nicer choice. And my husband has been saying, because anybody that's asking for money in Night City, I always give them money. And he's like, Cherami, you have got to stop giving every single person money. I was like, look, Night City is tough. You
It's a
need to
tough
look out
gig.
for each other.
It's
Yeah,
a tough
look.
gig.
He was like, you're going to run out of money. I was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
You're too much. James, when learning about the world, okay, clearly I've been having too much mead. When learning about the world the game is set in creates, was there any changes in the way you approached Valerie with any of your interactions?
Well, there
Basically,
were.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
Did
ahead.
anything change as I learned more about what was
Mhm.
happening?
Yeah, the
Um.
game world or the setting or anything. Did your
Yeah.
approach change at all?
Um. I we would just kind of like make a choice in the moment with the information that we had, and then sometimes the creative team in Poland would come back and say, actually it's more like this, or we made this adjustment. I know we had a lot of pickups where they came back and they were like, so we did not specify initially, but this event follows uh, another event in the game. So you're going to be crazy tired, crazy beat up, and you just sound a little too eager and ready for action. And this is following stuff where you have just been destroyed. So we need a little bit more of that exhaustion. So we would do changes like that. Um, there were because there's so many different paths and options, um, there were moments where you would go, oh, I see where this is going. And then you would have another option where it was going in the opposite direction. So it kind of covered us a lot on whatever choices that we made. Um, but there were a couple of scenes and missions where my first reaction was to go in and just not trust this person. I said, this person seems very shady. They are not what they seem, and I am not falling into their trap. And the
I love
director
it.
was like, "You need to trust people. She is not a bad person." And I was like, "No, no,
No, no, no,
no,
no.
she is. Trust me." And so he said, "You got to give me, you got to give me some options where you're not going to kill this person just at a moment's notice." And I was like, "Okay, but I know that this is the choice." Um, and when the when
That
the
is
pickups came
awesome.
back, they're like, "We want them all where she doesn't trust." And I was like, "See, I knew it. She was not trustworthy from the beginning." So the creative team in Poland would definitely give us some guidance if we were way off base, and we would come back and have to adjust accordingly. But it was really fun.
Flusky Wolf. She 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 would like you to say something in V's voice if possible.
Sure. So at the beginning of every session, just to make sure that we were in V's voice and setting the tone, we had a couple of lines that I would say every single day, and they are now ingrained in my head.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
one of them that I remember off the top of my head, which was always the first one, is "What's on the menu today?" And we would do that every time to make sure that the levels were right and checking everything. And so when people will say like, "Can you do a V line?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's not going to be anything really exciting. It's just something that you say to a random vendor. But that was what we did in our first session ever. So that will forever be. Anytime anybody asks, that will be the line.
There's a lot of fanboying and fangirling going on in the chat right now. FYI, FYI. Let's see. Fen asks, were there any particular moments or scenes during your voice work with Cyberpunk that were particularly emotional for yourself?
Oh yeah, so many. Um, one of the first ones
Evelyn,
that comes to mind.
cough, cough. Evelyn,
Look,
cough, cough.
yes, Evelyn just as a whole.
I just allow me to say very quickly. Don't mean to interrupt you, but what I got to give you props. You literally had tears coming down my cheek
Oh,
during the
it's
Judy
heartbreaking.
Evelyn Valerie scene. FYI.
How do you not? It's heartbreaking. The other one that was just, I mean, there again, so many. That's one of the things I love about this game. There are moments of absolute humor. And then there are other moments that rip your heart out. Some of them are in the same scene. There's a mission with River Ward. I don't know if it's still called this, but at the time it was called Peter Pan. And it tore me up. The
That's a
scene with
creepy mission.
it's
Creepy mission.
so creepy. The scene with Joshua tore me up. or that whole mission with Joshua. Um, I I was so excited about the Brendan scene with the vending machine and loved doing it. And then we had a really rough day, and Pierce is such a delight and such a compassionate director. In that, if we did a heavy emotional morning or early part of the session, he would make sure to give me like a palate cleanser and give me something fun so that I was not just like living in a depressed place. As he was like, look, we have so much stuff to get through, let's vary it up, let's give you some options, which you don't always have the ability to do. But since there was so much content to get through, we had that choice. And I remember he said, I know you love Brendan, so we'll do a little bit of Brendan and we'll give the palate cleanser. We did the scene from Brendan, and as you know, it does not end well for Brendan. And I was heartbroken. And I looked at him and I said, why would you do that to me? You have destroyed me. It was so hard earlier in the day. And then you took something that was so joyous and you broke me. So this game does that a lot for me. I feel things very fully.
Yeah. Judy's actress. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, Carla.
Carla. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Isn't she
Oh my
incredible?
fucking God. Her
Yeah.
when in that scene when dealing with the tragedy of Evelyn, her performance. Did you have that performance to play off of, or had that not been recorded yet?
I had Carla for most of what I recorded. I don't know if I had her for that exact moment.
But
But
that
she,
performance, oh my
oh
God.
my gosh, she's incredible. And I just like that moment and the pressure and all, like they're like, "Hey, if you do this wrong, everything ends." It's just gut-wrenching.
Oh my
And
God, yes.
and we had to toe the line of like sometimes the lines were written for V to not care as much or not be comfortable sharing how hurt V was. Um, but at the same time, I had told Pierce, I said, I'm not going to be able to just not have any response to this. There's got to be some level of empathy, some level of sympathy. I know that we want to create paths where V doesn't care as much or is not emotionally impacted as much, but I don't think it's I think it would be very difficult for any human to not have just a really devastated reaction because that situation is so heartbreaking. And the journey that we've gone on for Evelyn, to have it end that way
Oh
is
my God.
devastating.
I mean, if it doesn't hit you in the feels, you're dead. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what else to say to that.
Yes.
Um,
It was, well, I'm glad I was not crying alone.
no. You made this grown man cry. I'm just, I am man. I am comfortable enough in my masculinity to say that you brought this
I
man, you brought me
I
to
think,
tears.
look, I think tears and emotions, everyone should be
Absolutely,
able to express themselves to their fullest potential. Nobody should
absolutely,
be afraid of any of that.
110% agree. Thicka, what life path ending did you choose? Which ending did you choose
Oh,
on your playthrough?
so my brother chose Nomad, and my one of my best friends from high school chose Nomad, and so I had been watching through there. So I was like, well, I'm going to choose a different life path.
Hmm.
And when I worked on it, um, I really loved Padre's voice. And so I was like,
Yes,
I'm doing Street Kid because I gotta hear Padre.
right.
So I opted for Street Kid, and then I felt so guilty that I had not experienced Corpo that I went upstairs on that first day and I watched someone else's hour-long playthrough of them playing as the Corpo backstory. And I was that one just like really surprised me of how much I really enjoyed the Corpo backstory. It turned out great.
Oh yeah, that was my first playthrough Corporal actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I decided to work for the man. I decided to
Well,
work for
there
the
you
man.
go. Yeah.
Didn't work out. Didn't quite work. It didn't quite work
Well,
out for me, but
that's what my husband was like. Look, I wasn't really excited about the corpo life path, but then when he was watching it with me, he goes, "Wait, you're corpo for like 15 minutes," and I was like, "Well, yeah, no, yeah,"
yeah.
and he goes, "What do you mean? Yeah, of course. Like I would know that." I said, sorry, you're right. You weren't there with me when I was recording this. Yeah, you're right. I should have been
Yeah, you
clearer."
got a limo and everything. You're like living
Yeah,
loving large. Come on.
exactly. It's true.
Um, let's see. Abraham wants to know, what was your reaction when you found out Keanu was on the cast?
Oh man, I know exactly where I was when I found out
I love
Keanu
it.
was in the cast.
I love it.
Um,
Where were you
I
when Keanu was cast?
Where
I
were
love it.
you when
I
you
love
found
it.
out? I was coming back from a convention and I was sitting on a plane. We were about to take off, and I got a text message
Right.
from my husband that said, "Have
Okay.
you seen all of the stuff about Keanu? Like Keanu is going to be in a video game." And my husband didn't even know what I was working on. And
I
so
love
I'm looking at it going, "Wait, what? Wait, is this the game?" And my first reaction was honestly, that is so cool. I'm such a Keanu Reeves fan.
it. Right.
And simultaneously, I am so getting recast now because no one is ever going to trust me to play off of Keanu Reeves.
Right.
So that was my first reaction. And so people were like, "You didn't know before it was announced on the panel?" I was like, "Nope, had no idea." I found out with the rest of the world when it was trending on Twitter.
They kept that on the down. I mean,
Oh,
I
I
give
don't
them
know how they
kudos.
kept that so quiet.
Kudos. How you
No
kept that
idea.
on the down low. I don't understand. I don't understand. You would have thought somewhat it would have leaked. They're just
Yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
understand.
I would have thought, but I mean, I guess no, I don't think anybody keeps secrets like Keanu. That man is like a safe.
Oh yeah.
Everything is under lock and key.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'm just saying, even someone at CDPR might have, just accidentally mentioned it to their,
True.
to their
Yeah.
brother, and then their brother mentions it to their best friend, and then it's on Reddit. Yeah,
Totally.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Zig wants to know, what about the cyberpunk world interests you the most?
Oh my gosh. Have you seen how detailed that world is? And you want me to pick one aspect that's my favorite?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
My
That is, like,
my
an
members
impossible
here, they're
question.
not they ask the hard hitting journalistic questions over here.
Totally. And I'll give you one of my favorite things about when friends were playing it and they were creating their character.
Mhm.
I said, "Man, the nail polish options are incredible." And they were like, "Right?" So that's with my friends, male and female. I've said like, "So what nail option did you pick?" And they'll say, "What nail option did you pick?" Like that was, look, hard hitting decision that I had to make. But favorite part. Oh, so the second demo that we did was all about Maman Brigitte and the Voodoo Boys, and I loved that whole world in Pacifica, and I thought that
Oh
was
yes.
really really cool. And
Well,
their performances and their vocal, like the whole thing is just like a sweet gift to my ears. They are
yes.
so wonderful to sound to.
Oh, absolutely. And this, let me just say for the record, as Valerie, I wiped the voodoo boy. I mean, they lied to me. They double crossed me. So I
Right?
was like, screw you, and I killed them all. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, he's one. That was one that was very hard for me because I had never met the actor, but I heard a little bit of his performance at first. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a fan of his voice." And I would tell the director, I'm like, "Why is he doing such horrible things to me? I want to trust him. I want to like him. He's making it really hard."
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but you knew near the end of that exchange that I'm getting screwed over. You
Yeah,
kind of,
we-
yeah, it was
we-
too sketchy,
I guess very similar to Mateo. I'm revealing a lot about who I am as a person. I immediately go towards the people that are like, "I do not want to talk to her," and I'm like,
Yep.
"No, I'm gonna make you want to talk to me. We're gonna be friends." And they're like, "We're not gonna be friends." So yeah, I think that was much like Mateo. I should just know when it's not going to happen. A friendship is just not going to happen between me and the Voodoo Boys.
No, no.
Yeah.
Floppy, did you see the movie? Did she see the movie Gamer and notice a similarity between Evelyn and Cable's wife? I
Oh no, but now I have to watch.
Okay. Um,
How exciting!
and let's see. Vordell says, "Can you talk about the differences between playing roles with predetermined personalities like Valerie, where the player is more involved in the character creation role playing process?"
Oh, okay. So, like a character that is set versus it comes together
Yeah, it's
as you
more
create
general,
it
like for
as.
like
Sure.
Skyrim kind of character, where it's there's no real backstory. It's just
I
yeah,
just saw in the chat that someone gave a screen grab of all of the nail options, and
yeah.
that, I mean, that alone could be my screensaver on my phone.
That is
Uh,
awesome. That is
it's
awesome.
just so lovely. Um,
Thicka. By the
but
way,
yeah,
that duck, her other name is Thicka on the server.
oh,
Thicker,
amazing.
you just got a shout out from Cherami. So there you go,
Uh,
girl. I hooked you up.
Yeah, I'm very new to Discord, and so I like halfway through this I was like, "Oh, that's where the No Voice Motel chat is." I was watching a stand-up comedy special where somebody was talking about being an elder millennial, and I was like, "Oh, I feel very much like the little old lady millennial." Um, but as far as like when a character is set, of course it's fun. You know exactly what you're expected to do and what the character will do. Um, and I feel like it feels very comfortable. It's a nice warm blanket. You know what you're going to work on, and then you go into that world every day with that personality. With a game like this one, um, there's a lot of apprehension and anxiety for me, because literally the way that you play the game and the way that you interpret the game and interpret the performances is your choice, and it's all in your hands. So there's a lot of I don't have as much control over the character, your interpretation of my performance, because you're creating the character as you go based on what you like and what you're interested in. So that makes a huge difference. But by the same token, it's really fun to get to see how one little choice that someone makes could affect the character so drastically for the rest of the path. So it feels a lot like life, which is kind of cool.
Okay, and I think I know we've probably gone longer than I anticipated. I apologize. I
Oh,
thank
no
you for
worries.
sticking. You are the most one of the most amazing people I've ever talked to.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you so much. Thanks for
no,
having me. This is so
no,
much fun.
I greatly appreciate it. I try to. I hope you had fun. I definitely try to make it,
Absolutely.
and hopefully we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
if perchance, and I know if this is a thing, you can't talk about it, but if I'll just speak. If perchance there is some more potential cyberpunk work down the road,
Okay.
if that is a thing, if that transpires on some way, and you are involved, I would love to have you back and talk about it some more.
I would love that.
Awesome.
I would love to get to work on some more and love to hang out again.
You are the bestest ever. I am now going to put in my profile my new BFF, Cherami Leigh.
Thank you
That's.
so much.
Oh.
I mean,
So
whenever I'm allowed to travel and be in Boston, we'll have to share some mead.
oh my God. Oh my. I got you, girl. I know the places. I will hook you up. We will paint the town red. I will take
Yes.
you. I will take you. Does your hubby travel with you?
He does occasionally. It's usually my husband or my mom who gets to come with me.
Your mom? Oh
Um,
my God, I want to meet your mom. I
yeah.
I swear to God,
Usually,
I want to meet your
uh,
mom.
people, if I've gone to repeat conventions, and my mom has been once, and my husband has been another time. There was one convention that has met both, and they're like, I mean, look, we love you, but your husband and your mom are so fun. We'll just bring them out as guests. They can do a panel. I'm like, I don't know if I want my husband and my mom on a panel telling everybody
Yes,
what they know about me. That sounds
that
terrifying.
that sounds terrible. All right. Well, the floor is yours. Promote whatever you want. Way people can contact you. Upcoming projects. Anything you want to throw out there into the pipes of the internet. The floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm on Twitter at Cherami Leigh and on Instagram at CLK Star. One of my New Year's resolutions is to be a little more active on social media. I am very intimidated by social media, but I have some plans coming up in the next couple of months to kind of do some more giveaways and some fun ways to connect. So as I know those and can announce them, I will share them on those platforms. I am also working on a couple of projects that are on Netflix and ongoing. And then, of course, more of the projects that I'm working on than or projects I cannot talk about than that I can talk about, unfortunately. So as I can announce them, I will put them on the internet on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And if you want to, perhaps, friend me on Twitter.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
CP 27. What is my Twitter? Okay, I'm on my fourth glass of mead. Okay, Jeremy, you gotta cut me some slack.
Look,
I'm on my
listen, you
fourth
were
glass of
drinking
mead, and
for
I
both
can't
of
even
us.
remember my fucking Twitter. Hey, hang on. What is
Look,
my guys?
you're carrying the weight of
I
drinking
really
for both
am.
of us, and I really appreciate your dedication.
CP Online News. That's
Cool,
my.
amazing.
I tagged you about this interview, so you
Okay,
might
cool.
if it
I
might
will
be
I will
next.
investigate
Yes, but
and
yeah,
follow.
yes, but I've had anytime you want to pop in here, say hello. You are more than welcome.
Oh, well, thank
We
you.
would love to have you. You are yes, absolutely. You are a treasure to the voice acting community.
Oh, thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate that. Well, thank you guys for being so kind and welcoming me into the Discord world and being patient while I try to navigate how this works.
Yeah, you know what? Same thing. I mean, I've only just recently really started using Discord, and I'm still trying to figure things out. You said you're a millennial.
Yes.
I'm Gen X, so
Oh,
yeah,
well,
I'm
you
an
are
old
far
man.
better at this than I am.
Oh my God, no! Oh no, no! I'm an old man. I'm going to be grandpa pretty soon. At this point, I mean, I'm just going to be I'm going to be coming to you asking. How does this work there, girl? How does this work over there?
I think my grandmother is far more versed in the internet than I am. I'm going to start going to her for advice because I am so out of it.
All right. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.